Birds. All right. It's time for me to get to work, Bubba. I'm sorry. Go lay down. Oh, he's pushing himself on me. Go lay down. No, go. I'm not playing.
All right, one last sip.
Bro, I'm gonna keep sipping. This is my last cup before I go.
I know. How do you get one last good warm feeling? What's going on, everybody? Happy 4th of July weekend and happy week. You're probably listening to this post 4th of July, so we hope you had a good holiday with family. Celebrate those freedoms, the freedom to hunt, the freedom to express yourself, and all the sacrifice that came along with it. So, thank you guys so much for stopping by and checking out the channel and checking out the video because we're up early this morning. We both got a lot of things to do, but we're up here knocking out some videos and we're talking a little hunting this morning. So, Rudy, what's going on, brother?
What's up, brother? Not a whole lot, man. Just waking up to this beautiful morning.
Yep. Did you have a good fourth?
I did, man. I didn't do a whole lot. Just hung around the house, and the only fireworks I saw were when my eyes closed. So,
Do your dogs get worked up about fireworks or anything?
uh, honestly, Deuce thought they were deer probably getting shot out there. He got really excited and want to run outside, and every time he hears a boom, he relates it to hunting. So he don't know what difference no firework, but man, he started going crazy last night. Not in a bad way, but like anxious to get out there and go. Like looking at me, going to his collar, then running out there to the door. That's what
Yeah.
he'll do. He'll look at me, run to his collar, his tracking collar, and then run to the door. Like, dude, what are you waiting for? They're drying. They're dropping like flies. We got to go get them.
Yeah. Yeah. There's bodies everywhere out there. We gotta
That's
go.
what he's thinking. That was pretty funny. Other than that, I had a good time, man. Unfortunate, we had a little bit of rain yesterday, but and then I saw, a little further south and west, there was some really bad flooding, so prayers for those families and people that are missing, etc.
Yeah, man. No, that's a great. I'm glad you brought that up because anybody who may be listening, looking. I mean, we've got folks from all over here, Texas, who are starting to listen, man. And those areas around Comfort, Kerr County, Guadalupe County, and all that, man. Those they dealt
Any
with.
families that were on the river, Guadalupe
Yeah,
River,
a lot
yeah,
of
man,
lot of
prayers to you, your families. Hope everybody's okay.
yeah. We're really hurts our hearts to hear about that. Unfortunately, I mean, it sounds like just it was an insane flash flood. I mean, I've heard everything from 20-foot surge, 20-foot
30,
river rises in like minutes.
30,
You know,
yeah.
it
And
just came rushing in.
I'm seeing trail cam pictures of places just with like barren desert looking hunting spots with feeders in them, and then the water over the camera, and then nothing in there, not even a feeder after it goes down. It's pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Our hill country friends, we love you guys. We're thinking about you. We're praying for you. So if this makes your day a little bit better, we hope that's the case. But so man, I went out last weekend and did a little scouting, and I know I feel like there's a lot of folks that deal with this kind of like year two and three, and I feel like Reagan and Dave are kind of in this space as well, even though they've had success in some specific areas. But I know we talk a lot about betting, that kind of just jump into it, I guess. But um, when one of the questions is like, I don't know what betting is, I have that. But if we go to like that second and third level, when we talk about if now that I know some deer are bedding here, whatever that looks like, bedding can look a little bit different in different situations, right? But once you can verify either via camera or via hunting experience, a couple of sits that you had last season, you saw some bucks in and out of this place, you saw does in and out of this place, whatever time of year you relate that to, that makes you confident that you've figured out this little known bedding area. But you're just kind of new to it. It's just like an aha moment. You finally found an area you think you can stick around, but like, where do you go from there? It's like, how do you set yourself up for next year and the year beyond, or what are the questions you need to ask so you can figure out how to be successful in that spot and take advantage of it. So, does that make sense to you? And like, kind of what are your thoughts around that?
No, no, absolutely. When it comes to finding a bedding area, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before you can say, hey, this is huntable. Hey, I can do this, I can do that. I mean, the only way you're going to know is if you put in the time, not just finding the spot, but the area around that spot. Because someone like me who specifically hunts doe bedding, um, I could find some buck bedding area. That ain't hard for me to do, but I prefer to stick around where the girls are, just for the fact I see a lot more bucks that way, and deer. But yes, there are a lot of questions and that need to be answered before you can really make a good judgment on how to hunt a specific bedding area. And I think that just goes into scouting the sign around it more than anything. Um, Scrapes, rubs, identifying heavily used trails as to that lightly used trail coming in and out, understanding how the bucks are going to approach that bedding area during season. Because I mean, if we all, I've heard this many times on podcasts, if we all thought deer walk nose to the wind or crosswind, then all deer would be walking one direction all the time,
Yeah, and
you know, and
they'd all be in a different state by now.
that's right,
You know.
and it's not necessarily true, but as far as they don't do that, but they will use certain terrain and crosswinds or directional winds to an advantage in those areas. And I've always noticed a big difference in doe bedding areas as to buck bedding areas. I've been hunting this particular little block of woods now, and I've had bucks laying in places that you would just never imagine. Like I've walked right by one's bed probably 100 times already,
Hmm.
and it wasn't until I saw some really fresh rubs right after they got out of their velvet that led me to his bed. And then over here, 200 yards on the other point, on a point on the side of the creek, was the doe bedding area. So he was within a 200-yard distance. Do I think that he can smell those does in any given wind situation at 200 yards? Probably. It's like a shark in the water. They can smell blood a mile away. For that dude, he can smell that girl when she's getting close to be, hey, I need to be over there right now. You know, but I look for a lot of particular things, when I find a bedding area. First thing I'm going to do is establish entries, exits,
Hmm.
heavily doe used trails, and that light faint trail that may be cutting crosswind in certain areas, close to a scrape or something. That's my buck trail. Identifying my buck trail, identifying the perimeter, because it's not like, hey, bedding area is right here. Identifying that
Yeah.
perimeter around the bedding area, and a lot of times that how you determine that is the scrape line or the rub line that's around it. Those bucks don't have to go in there. Like I said, it's done for us to think bucks are going away, but you can count on this. If that buck's looking for a girl, he's going to be crosswind or downwind side. He doesn't have to go in the bedding area. He needs to be within a 50 to 100-yard buffer. And he's going to be running that crosswind or downwind side because he's covering more ground that way.
Right.
And I think that's what people don't understand. They think that I got to be really right here. No, you just need to understand the perimeter, understand the sign around that perimeter, scrapes, rubs. Like I said, I'm going to repeat it over and over because we got to beat it into everybody's head. You know, if you see a scrape, why is this scrape here? How far am I from the bedding? You know what? That's within 100 yards. That deer is probably utilizing this area to check that doe bedding area I found over there. And if it's, let's say, in the morning and the doe bedding's down on that point, well, that buck's not going to be running down there in the creek. He's going to be running up there on top of that ridge above that doe bedding on the upper perimeter of it, and he's going to be waiting on that thermal in the morning to rise up and bring that sin up to him. Because what happens with the air when the sun comes up? It heats up and it rises.
Yeah.
Warm air rises. That's the best way to think about a thermal. When it gets
Yeah.
cool, the air drops. When it gets hot, the air rises. You got a two-story house. Tell me the upstairs is 70 degrees while the downstairs is 70. It's not. It's like
Yeah.
74 and downstairs is 70,
Yep.
right? I lived in a two-story house, and that was always our problem. The upstairs was always hotter than downstairs. That's kind of what helped me understand these thermals a little bit better too. But yeah,
Yeah.
that buck's going to be up there running that line, looking for that scent to be rising, and he's going to cover all that ground on that ridge top, maybe cover 3 bedding areas before he says, "I'm tired. I need to take a nap."
Yeah. So you mentioned a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm
I,
sorry, I got
I
in a
think
tangent.
yeah, no, I mean that's the way it works. It's like, let's throw out all the little nuggets and then pick up the pieces, right? I think a great point you mentioned earlier is something I try to remind myself to do is that 30,000 foot view. It's like maybe I can go home and I'm looking the area I'm hunting and I'm looking on the map, um, and I'm zooming out where I get like that 5 mile spread, and I'm looking at either probably similar areas around where I'm hunting to see if I can find anything on the map that's similar. But I'm also I'm looking at all the terrain features in relation, within like a half a mile, right? Especially within like 500 yards. I'm looking at everything as it relates to that bedding. Might tell me why they're bedding there, but mostly it's probably going to be cover vegetation, base, right? It should, and, in relation to maybe even some things like private or highways or something, but it's just kind of like zoom out, have a good look at it, and see if like, well, I think if they're going to use this area or if a buck was going to cruise it, these are like you said, sometimes they'll walk right through it, but most of the time, and I've seen this enough, and I'm confident to at least use it as almost a rule of thumb. That's for a scouting purpose. See where you can predict they might swing around it, right? And then go check those areas and try to find the sign that relates to that. That might tell you that okay, that's it's probably worth marking. Looking at the big landscape, see how it relates to that bedding. See if there's any terrain pinches, water feature pinches, or anything like that. Any other habitat edges you can find, and then just kind of mapping that out in your head, and then kind of go and dive in and scout it. And like you said, which is kind of what I did in this spot. This is a spot that, in my mind, I'm thinking about like if I took somebody to and showed them on a map, like, hey, this is where I'm going to put you. You've never been there. This is bedding. I know there's deer bedding in here, but go spend a day scouting it before you hunt it, and you know, um, try to find a setup. I kind of think about it like that. It's like if somebody dropped you in a space and like, hey, I know there's deer bedding in there, but I don't know anything else about it. How would you go about verifying it? And specifically in the off season, because that's kind of where we're at. So I did a lot of what you mentioned. I went out and one of the first thing I started with is just the habitat edge in general. I made a full loop around the edges, and it's not a perfect circle or nothing. You're just kind of, weave, and sometimes I was 20 yards inside the edge. Sometimes I was 20 yards outside the edge, and there was a creek system kind of related to it. So I looked for that whole edges, and I started finding those punch trails because this was thick. It was really thick. So I just started this. I was looking for signs of those buck trails, either walking the edge or some of them were just those rub lines that tell you they were going in and coming out. Because I found rubs going in, and then as I would kind of loop in them, when I'd see those trails, just like little pigtails as I looped in there, I'd find rubs coming out. I was like, okay, this is this is a spot where a buck went in and out of here probably multiple times. Maybe he's bedding on the edge. Um, Man, there's so much that goes into it because it's like, is it early season bedding or are they bedding in and around it in relation to, like the pre-rut? Because I think, like you said, another great point you mentioned is that a lot of times you can also remember in the time of year, if you find a doe bedding pocket, the bucks not might not be just in there and out of there pushing them all the time, but they're probably bedded a few hundred yards away on a different feature or downwind because they know what's coming. And like you said, and they'll set themselves up to catch those scents as they're just laying there at 10 o'clock in the morning or something, or when they get up to browse. I've seen that before. I've seen a buck. Because I jumped him twice. I saw him in the same spot twice. And it was the only reason he was there because it was prime. I mean, it was pre-rut. It was like October 27th, and he was bedded in this hub, just looking down into it. And I knew does cut across that hub all the time. And I'm like, man, that's the only reason he's got to be there. Like, it just made too much sense. But um, that's the way I started scouting that spot the other day. I was looking for trails coming in and out of it, specifically with rubs, historical rubs. I scouted the habitat edge and I was trying to find where those heaviest pockets of old sign was to tell me they're either spending time swinging around here because of the thermals and the scent, like you said. And there's a historical clue to that. And then also just try to get my eyes on everything, checking for people sign and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, Well,
That's a good point, man. Like saying, I guess I was doing it, didn't realize until you said it, but going off the historical sign around that bedding area too, it's gonna tell you, hey man, these bucks prefer and know this time of year the winds are generally predominant this way. This is why the historical sign's here because they're consistently using that area year after year. I'm just gonna throw out a little example that I can relate to as well with that. I've got a little spot, and it's young. I've told you about this spot, Seth. It's got a little rectangular pine thicket, young pine thicket, maybe 10 to 15 years old. Smaller trees.
mm-hmm,
It's really thick. It's really dense in there. Really, like you can tell the ground's cooler. It's definitely a bedding area. And then it's separated. There's a logging road, fire road that goes completely around it, and then there's beautyberry thicket, right, with some scattered older pines like bull pines, right, and then it hits another rectangular or circular looking uh, pine thicket. Same thing, really young pines, super dense, super thick. There's tons of signs showing deer coming across back and forth from bedding area to bedding area. On the very north end, they're using what I noticed the logging road, right, for easy travel. And then what they'll do is at the corner of where that rectangle, they cut across. And there is a really good, and what I did was is I found uh, a couple old rubs. I mean, there's always scrapes on that logging road that goes around those pine thickets really quick. And I followed those rubs into the next thicket. And over the 2 years that I put in there, I've seen a lot of deer, a lot of young deer, and it seems like then deer knew whenever I was in there, and I have been busted sneaking in early bow season 70 yards away, south winds, and I knew better, but I was trying to swing around that little thicket and come from south to north with the south wind blowing into there. I don't know why I did it. I shouldn't have done it. I knew better. And I mean, I was 80, 60 yards away and you can just hear deer blowing. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I guarantee you there was a good buck in there. I've seen like some really good shooters on camera, but that historical sign told me where my cameras needed to be, where I needed to focus. And when I found more historical sign on the other side of that other thicket, it kind of went into where there's a big opening. I know that's nighttime, right? But I found a
mm-hmm,
core area where there was like three big giant scrapes. So not just one. Like usually there's one. I mean, these were three overworked scrapes, two or three giant rubs in there, and feed trees really close by. No reason for it's super thick and like inside of both sides. It's just a narrow strip of open, right? And then deer in there, they were. I want to go back. I got a camera in there. It's been soaking for a couple years. I need to go pull out. I've just been saying I'm going to go and I don't go. But that is a perfect example of what you just said to me that I can relate to and be like, yeah, man, absolutely. You know,
yeah,
um, I think the best thing too is to explain to people, like you said, it's not a perfect area, it's not a perfect circle, it's not. But the best way to vision it, if you don't know, is if you take like a square box and they say that square box is inside is the bedding area, right? That buck is going to want to travel. If the wind's south, he's going to want to try to swing up here to smell everything inside of there. Or
mm-hmm,
if it's a north wind, he's going to want to what? Swing around that bottom and catch all that scent. Very rarely. You've seen it, I've seen it, and I've seen it to where there's scrapes right in the middle of the bedding area where they'll cut through the middle. But a lot of times, them bucks are just letting them know, hey, girls, I'm here, I'm watching. You let me know when you're ready, you know?
and that's like what you said. One of the things I love to find these days is when if I find that doe bedding, and then when you find those, and there it may be people when we may see this a lot more often. We just we always talk about there's different kinds of scrapes, but that may be a different conversation. But once you get some verified doe beddings for sure, or bedding in general, like there's like a buck bedding area, they're probably if either him or the bachelor group is gonna kind of have their licking branch type area that they use. And that's kind of maybe how I more relate it. It's like if it's a buck's scrape, like and if it's just territorial, it's more of licking branch based, scent based, of course. But like as you move closer to the rut, you got the scrapes that are like outside of the doe bedding that are lined up. So he's just waiting for them does to start pissing in them scrapes, right? And
Yep.
that's the indicator, and those does know that those are this and that buck scrape or those bucks are screwed in that, and then as soon as they pop out and they squat in that thing, you better be there like the like the next 2 or 3 days, right? But
100%.
yeah, and like so for this area, for me, it's really I'm really been targeting it because it's really hard to get on, like an early October or even mid-October buck. In the last couple of years, I've seen bucks using this area like in daylight on like on a couple of these terrain features in relation to this kind of bedding area going in and out at like 2, 3 in the afternoon, 9, 10 in the morning. So it's like they're just popping out. So or going back up in there. So one thing you mentioned that I didn't was obviously the pockets of oaks. Looking for, looking for those best isolated oaks because it does have good oaks around it, which is kind of hard because they're everywhere. So it just kind of depends on where they're preferring to pop out and feed at that time. But one of the interesting things I found was the best pocket of historical sign was on the south, um, kind of the southeast. I'm sorry, I say that I'm thinking of the wind. It was on the northeast corner, which was set up for like a southwest wind, right? And it
Mhm.
was also the lowest area kind of around that little bedding pocket. It wasn't big, but like when you like, and it was kind of steep. I was surprised. But the biggest stretch of historical sign was basically lined up for like a predominant wind for like the better part of the year, right? And it was also like kind of the lowest area. And I found some trails. That's where I found at least two trails that had rubs going up in the bedding. So it was like I could see them kind of J hooking down in there to go up in that bedding because it's a low area. If it's like early in the morning or like even before sunrise, right? When everything's kind of flooding down in there, all that scent was pooling and they're
Yep.
going up right there and then, you know, just curtailing out to go up in there. Or, if they're scent checking it. I don't really care which reason they're there. I just want to know that that's one of the higher concentrated little pockets of travel, however that looks. Um, so I
Is that
looked
where you put your
around.
cam?
I did, yeah, I put that's yeah, and it's not working. But
Well,
but
that's
it's
how
in
you
that
know it's a
low.
good spot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if your camera's not working, you're probably in a good spot. Um, but yeah, and I looped around that northwest corner and I headed kind of west and I found some good sign and I actually found a stupid cool pinch point. I'll have to show it to you on a map and I should have got a picture of it in person, but I didn't. Yeah, it was like one of the better pinch points I've found. Like there's no way a deer could kind of get around it unless he went like 50 yards one way, but like to be right up next to the bedding. Anyway, and I looped around because where my history is on the west side of this area, just the way the access sets up, kind of the west corner, and then headed back like up the west. It has a north and south kind of straight line. So I've scouted way up that line over there that you would access from the west, and that's where I've gotten some of the traffic. But I feel like I told you, I've kind of always kind of felt like I've been missing something. And I was familiar with a lot of the sign over there, which is good. And I found a ton of early season whip rubs over there, like where they're just thrashing the little small. And I could see some of the old ones I saw like 2 years ago, which is cool. Because you would never know they're there now. I just know they're there. But it was interesting because I got excited to loop around the south side, right? Like for some of those north wind, prime rut, cold front situations where, you're going to catch some cruising. And man, honestly, the sign on the south side of that was not even a third as good as what I found up there as I
I
found on
believe
this
that.
side. And
There's gonna be a preferred side to that bedding, any bedding area.
yeah,
Entry, exit, food, travel corridor. I mean, you're gonna see stuff around it, but I believe you 100% when you say that because there's gonna be a preferred side,
yeah.
especially for a better deer.
Yeah, and then so the question came on my mind was like if I was to come in this area, say it was a 78-degree day in on November 13th, and I wanted to hunt this area and winds out of the south, whatever, predominant wind blows that way 90% of the year, right? If I showed up on a big cold front, now it's 38 degrees in the morning, it's crisp. We got a, 7 to 8 mile an hour wind out of the north. Am I gonna go hunt that low pocket on that, southwest corner, or am I gonna trust the front, trust the conditions, and hunt that south side with no sign and try to get on a good travel
Are we
correlation?
bow hunting or are we rifle hunting?
Bow, say you're bow hunting. So
Hmm.
I asked myself that question. I was like, well, what if you show up out here and the conditions are great and you know the concentration of the signs on the other side? I think if you want to kill the bigger deer, the more mature deer, you kind of got to throw. I don't know. You got to throw that sign because it just doesn't set up for it, right? I mean,
Right.
you've, and I was like, well, everything I know or would know, I feel like because other people would ask themselves the same questions. I would trust my eyes and the scouting on that side and trust those conditions more than that old sign on the other side. And be like, he might have already, a couple of deer or bucks, they might have already been cruising that side already. And maybe I've already got pictures. I'm excited. I know what they're doing on there, but that's not efficient for this spot right now. I need to be on this other side. Even if that means I go in it, and there might be a new sign that pops up. That's just conditional, but even if that means going in midday, and finding the best spot and hunting it that evening and then coming back in the morning and giving it, if the conditions don't
And now
change.
you know where to be,
Yeah.
exactly where to be.
You know.
Maybe even a micro adjustment if needed.
Yeah, but I was hoping there was something that would give me a hint to that if I had to do that, but man, there just wasn't a whole lot. So I marked some of the trails. Like I said, not a lot of rut sign or rubs or anything, just the occasional little dink of like, well, I kind of think that's a rub, but and there's something else. I think some people might access more from that side. It's not real close by, but I kind of wondered about that too. If that there's a history of just people presence over there, but that was just something I asked myself. So, I mean, what's your take on that in that type of situation?
Man, so eh, you miss every shot you don't take. And sometimes risking the wind is worth the reward, you know. But if it goes bad, it goes bad. That buck knows you're there. You're a week out from the next time you'll probably see him or longer. Depending on if there's a hot dog, we all know it don't matter.
Yeah,
If it's me, I would risk it on knowing that I've got that buck in there, consistently a day or two in a row. He was there in the morning, he was there in the evening. I'm going there in the second day, and he's gonna mess up. But now I'm trying to put in my head, I know where this trail's at. Is there a way that I can come in at a crosswind and set up maybe somewhere where he turns like a 90 or comes in to where I'm lining up. So here's the 90. I'm lining up here. My wind's blowing this way or this way, and I'm trying to catch him as he's making that turn to go around that bedding area.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Because let's say he's coming down, and then here's the bedding wall. He's coming down, and he's going to do this above it, and then maybe go swing up a ridge and go to the next bedding area,
yeah.
right? Or
Yeah,
vice versa. If he's coming this way, I would try to find. I would try to find one kind of way where I'm giving him the wind,
mm-hmm.
but I'm trying to find that weak spot. If I have to cross where he's going to cross, you got to kill him before he gets there or as he gets there.
Yeah,
So there's a risk factor. If I'm going to cross where he's going, for one, I'm going to risk blowing out the bedding area. I know I'm not going straight up in there. I know that I've got to come in on a crosswind, so meaning from the side, right?
and
Because everybody thinks you got to walk in a straight. No, man. I know. Like I just did a big old loop this year to get on Penny's buck, right? Gave them the wind. And
yeah,
this is the same thing. I'm giving him the wind. It's a risk reward. I mean, you may not see anything, and you're like, man, I messed that up completely. I know not to do that again.
yeah.
You
And that's
know,
that's the thing about this area for me is there now there's a couple of good ways I can get in there. So I could hunt it on a couple of different winds if I want to. It's not like I don't have to wait. I can lob a couple of hunts at it because my access would be good. So, there's just a lot of variability to it. And the other thing is I filmed a lot of the scouting. So the reason we wanted to discuss this morning is because we're going to post that along with the podcast version, maybe throw a couple of these clips in here too, just so you can see what we're talking about. But this was just a scout that I did the other day, and then you know, I was super excited about it because, like I said, that pocket of sign that I found was insane. I mean, I was standing in one spot, and within the eyesight, I could see probably, and I know for a fact because I stopped counting, 15 plus rubs
Oh
from
wow,
various sizes. I mean, from the size of this coffee cup down to the size
little
of a dime.
saplings,
Yeah,
whip rubs.
little bitty stuff, but also along with some huge rubs, And I
Well,
found
that's
some.
definitely a corridor or home for a buck, some sorts, one of the
Yeah,
two.
and there's a real good edge right there, like a habitat edge, and it's just like it's what I like to see. It's just and it's variable. It's like some of it's like 20 foot high, thick, like sweet gum, like mixed with greenbrier thicket, and it's just like staggered. It's not like the same level because it's got big pockets of that, and then it rolls down to where it's like 6 or 7 foot high, and it's probably 30 acres in size, something like that. But and I found some stuff along the edges that I thought looked like good licking branch spots. Some old stuff, some old ones that were kind of broke off. I didn't find any like real big ones, but really hard to tell this year, like this time of year, like whether there was a good ground scrape there or not. Sometimes you can, but right now those are just really hard to verify. But I was pretty stoked about it, man. And last year I went into that spot once and because now I've got the timing too. But I think this year I might be able to hunt it even a little bit more of the rut if I wanted to, based on what I know now. But I went in there and I passed one of my a trail camera at 2 o'clock. I passed the camera at 2:30, and I got a picture of a buck, a nice buck, at 2 p.m. So he went through that pinch 30 minutes almost to the minute before I did. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I asked you because I asked a bunch of people at the time. I was like, man, 30 minutes. I remember asking a couple of different, groups or whatever. Like, do you think I bumped 30 minutes? Did I push that deer out in front of me? Did I push him off or was that just a coincidence? I mean, 30 minutes. I mean, because I was like, man,
Well,
he's
what really
probably,
helps with that is what was the deer's demeanor in the video? Was he?
he looked, no, he was just walking like,
Oh, that buck was
out,
cruising.
no, he was just like, and this was like October 14th or something, like I said, fairly early. But he was just, head down, shoulders
Oh,
low,
he looked tired.
neck out. Yeah, he was just like neck out, just kind of,
It looked like he was cruising. Sounds like he was cruising.
he could have been, but it's like early, it's kind of early for it. But that may be the case. But that's the thing. I don't get very many does in here at all. At least where I've had my camera set up historically. I may get more this year because I'm gonna monitor some new parts of it. But that's the thing. It's just bucks. Like, and they're just daylight. It's just kind of weird. I'm like, man, this has got an early season opportunity, an earlier season opportunity written all over it. I just haven't known enough about it. But, but anyway,
Well, I guess I'll know when I get that phone call.
yeah, hey, I hope that's the case, right? But yeah, to that point, um, I feel like it's the kind of area that I could build a good history with, and it could be one of those core spots, like especially timing based. If it may be a spot that I have that just for whatever reason the activity gives you an opportunity a little bit earlier in the season while I'm waiting on some other parts, some other areas that I know well to kind of catch up with what my coffee is. Wearing my chest out for some
Yeah.
reason.
That's what we get first morning coffees, and I'm the
Yeah,
same way though. I've been doing the same thing over here.
but because I think that's a lot of, and you kind of struggle with that with every spot. Is first of all identifying the bedding, but then I feel like a lot of people are like, yeah, but what do I do with it? I mean, and I even tried to like bust in there like 20 yards and see if there was a spot where I could get in a tree and hunt with a rifle like as high as I could, kind of like I did last year, and see if and just to go do like a pre-climb sometime within the next several weeks or like it ain't gonna get no cooler before season. but just go out there and pick a tree and see if I can see like down into that or like all the way across it somehow. Like there's areas parts of it that
Oh, I do that. There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts,
yeah,
man. A lot of times, and Penny can attest, like we'll have a climber or lock on our back. For you, it's just a stick and a saddle. Or a couple sticks and a saddle. You can get up there pretty high, but my goal is when I get in there, like find my kill tree, set my camera, understand what I'm looking at, and completely know what I'm doing when I go back just from one trip. And then of course, if I'm not getting pictures or etc., or we're not seeing what I want to see, and then I'm micro adjusting. Like I might have to go back out there in 3 weeks because I'm not getting pictures or what I want to see, and I need to readjust my camera or pick another area, or maybe just say, hey, maybe not here, maybe coming in here blew this up so bad that they're like, I ain't coming back in here.
yeah,
Preseason it's not so bad because you got a lot of time to make up for it, but
yeah,
in general, like I try to know, and it's hard. It's not like we go in there and we're in the kill tree the first time. We get lucky sometimes, yes, but there's micro adjustments, and that's why we continuously say all this stuff. It's a micro adjustment. Sometimes going in there, doing all this work, you put in the hunt, just and then you see what's going on. You're like, man, it wasn't what I thought. Maybe this isn't the right approach. So you're micro adjusting around to get the right hunt out of the spot that you want. And it may take 2 years. I mean, Seth can vouch for that.
yeah,
It may take 2 years of micro adjustments or really trying to understand an area, then dive in and get the kill.
yeah, and that's why I kind of I try to constantly be evaluating some type of area because I seem to have, that's the seem to be the pattern I've developed is like I constantly need to have spots in evaluation because I'm always looking to improve my top tier areas of, that I know where like at least you have three or four spots where you're just like they're just high odds situations because of what you know about them. There may come a time where I don't quite do that as much anymore, but I feel like that's a good strategy because what you can always count on is things changing, right? There's a lot of like two sides to the coin that everybody talks about, and they're like, well, I hunt this spot the same 2 or 3 days every year. I always kill something. It's always going to be like, mostly rut based. And then other people are like, man, but things are changing all the time. They come in and cut that spot. People, people can move in, they could sell it, whatever that looks like. So if you're not constantly looking for something else, then you're just kind of starting all over if you don't have anything else in the works. But which is probably just the way I lean, I suppose. But yeah, so that was my approach to that whole area. And it's like when you get home and you got to mark everything, right? And I mean, look at Reagan and Dave. I mean, they were super successful in an area at early on. It didn't take them 2 or 3 or 4 years to figure it out. They hit one of them honey holes where they capitalized like in the first year and a half, but they're still going back and they're trying to scout it even more. And they're on good betting. They know that now for sure, right? Camera intel, experience, hunting, observations, the whole 9 yards, and they're still going back. They're like, well, let's branch out over here and see how this relates to the betting, right? Let's branch out over here and see, what this side tells us, And I just think you can't hardly do that enough. And it's going to when those conditions are changing or you go in, you're not seeing what you want to see, you can shift to those spots. Well, I remember that little low spot in the creek that had a little oxbow in it, or I remember that trail that I saw over there, this cluster of rubs, those are the best oaks in relation to this bedding that are like right up against it are on this side.
Yep.
I'm gonna go check that. Or if I'm gonna throw a blind sit at it and it's like early, it's like, man, there's just nothing on this side. I'm gonna walk in there and like sit those oaks, until 9 or 10 in the morning. Then I'm gonna get down and rescout it. But and that's what I did is marked all of those good oak trees. There's a ton of water oaks, and there's a good variability of oak trees in there too. So you could kind of, it could kind of be anywhere. But a lot of the does that I've seen, the ones that I have got on camera, I've caught them around the water oaks and stuff in there. That seems to be kind of what's in there the most. But I'm excited about it, man. It's just the constant cat and mouse game. But and y'all see on the video kind of what I was talking about, and hopefully that kind of helps clear things up a little bit. But I think once you know those areas, and like I said, I picture it in the form of if somebody took you to an area that you've never seen and was like, "Hey, this is your deer bed in here. Just go hunt it," even though you've never put eyes on it. How would you start to how would you start to break it down?
That's a good start, and not all of our answers are going to be the same, man. If you ask me the same question next year, it'd probably get a little bit more out of me. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but really breaking down the bedding areas when you do find it is just identify the boundaries, the main trails, historical sign around the bedding area itself. That's going to tell you where the bucks really like to be, right? And then make a game plan and put your cameras out there and let them do the work for you. And if you're not a camera hunter, that's fine. Mark it on your spot. Mark it on a map or something of your bedding area. You know where this bedding area is. Maybe put another mark of I need to hunt close to here. And put your sit in. And if you kill one on the first hunt, awesome. If not, micro adjustments, man. That's
Yeah,
really it. Make adjustments as needed and capitalize on what you do know. And you're gonna learn more and more every time you go out there. And more years you put in it, like Seth said, things are gonna change, trees are gonna fall, places are gonna burn, areas are gonna be cut, pressure's gonna come in, so be ready for either A, an adjustment, or B, another area. Then it's good to have many of these spots, and I can tell you, bedding areas are a dime a dozen. You're going to find plenty of them if you just put in the work. It's just understanding how to capitalize on it and understanding what bedding areas are good bedding areas and what areas are
yeah,
like, oh, hey, this is probably just some young deer blowing through here, bedding up right here. I can tell myself like, hey, man, this is a good bedding spot. We need to really focus on it, and after a few times of finding, I remember the first time I found a bed, it was like, oh my God, I love Danny Default. He taught me everything I know.
yeah.
But after I found my first bed, it was like there's another one. There's another one. Things that just little detail stuff. But it gets me excited. I'm gonna be the guy that goes out September, first week of September, go put cameras out and scout a new ridge or two and just fine tune another area that I'm in and get ready for that October because I'm not hunting. I'm tracking the first week or two of October. So
Yeah,
I don't really plan on putting a lot of, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not going to hunt. I'm just not going to put some serious time in until where I know my areas are really good at that time.
yeah.
I am a rut hunter. Ain't afraid to admit it. I've tried so many years to get on that early patternable buck pattern, and I've only shot at one bow season decent buck.
Yeah.
Plenty of spikes and does, and I mean, it ain't nothing to brag about, but it's meat in the freezer, and I just have not been able to do it myself in all the years that I put in out there. So I will say that yeah, I am focusing on that rut time
It's
myself.
hard. It's so hard, man.
It's hard,
Even
and just
listen.
grueling through the sweat and heat in general. It
Yeah,
sucks.
it
Sucks
is,
in
man.
Texas.
It's one of the toughest things. Like I said, to the point where like, man, you honestly don't know if it's worth your time to push that hard that early and kind of burn yourself out, or potentially like burn other spots. But you never know what you might learn. Sometimes you just gotta
I
go.
learned I don't like being in the
Go.
woods.
Yeah, it's like I got to be hunting somewhere, so I'm probably gonna burn it up somewhere. But a lot of that's gonna be like in newer areas, where like if I go in and blow something up, all it does is teach me something, for next year. Or, but yeah, dude, last year, and I put a lot of sweat down, and with not a whole lot to show for it.
Whatever. This dude goes and
Well,
is like, yeah, I'm gonna go out of town and film a hunt. I'm like, bro, you're leaving in prime rut. And he comes back and in a couple, not even a day. I shot one at 8 o'clock in the morning. I get the phone
that was
call. And I'm
right
like,
though.
oh my God.
That was
That was
right
like the
though,
first
man.
real hunt you put in. The bow season don't really count. You were still scouting and trying new. You were like me, just
Mhm.
trying new stuff.
Yeah,
Your first real hunt was when you came back and you were like, look at this buck I got on camera. He's in this bedding area. I know he is. And then the next morning he killed that buck.
it's true, which was very nice. It was it,
He said, well,
it
like
was.
a very little. I'm like, dude, you killed some nice deer this year too.
Oh,
So
dude, it was a good feeling because I was sweating, man. I was sweating. I was just worried that I had blown like the best week of the season, but it worked out pretty good. I got no complaints, you know. And you were there to back me up. You're like, man, I got the spot, I got the spot, and I'm like, I'm gonna go throw it at this one, you know, real quick. And
the
yeah, it only took
He was like, he pulled a Daniel and he's like, I got my own deer. They look better than your deer. I don't need to see your deer.
man. I was like, I'm on a little herd of deer. I don't need to see you.
Uh,
But yeah, and well, I'll just kind of leave it on this for those who are like, you know, when we talk about betting, it's like, man, well, you guys didn't describe like, you know, what betting looks like. We mentioned it a little bit, and we can talk about that later. But I think Rudy just made a good point. Was you walk through the woods and the forest, you'll jump deer in all different kinds of settings. You know, they'll just be bedded along some real thin areas. You're like, well, I thought, you know, I thought bucks bed in this stuff or this kind of stuff. Why would I don't understand? I see them, I jump them in all different kinds of stuff, and that's going to be true. But what to your point is when you jump a deer or you're seeing deer in these like bedding spots, and you're just like, I don't get it. You know, doesn't make sense. Big point of that is a lot of times that's like 2-year-old deer and younger, right? You mentioned young bucks, young does. And I see that a lot when I would jump a little family of deer or something, and it's just like young does or like in little 4 point, you know, and a 6 point that are a year and a half old. They're just kind of laying wherever, you know, just like does, you know. But when you get that bigger, more mature buck, and I would even say, you know, just 3.5 and older, they're going to be in a different level of cover. And this might look a little different. It's not like all you know the best bucks bed in 8 foot high Yopon thickets, you know, that you got to crawl under, like somebody else bed. No, the biggest one's bed in the beautyberry thickets, you know, because I mean we talk about that all the time, you know, and then you got the big lush greenbrier type stuff. All of those can be equally as good. It's just where you find them in that sense. But when you see those areas, you need to, you know, definitely pay attention. But it's all about the verification process when you start to see that, you know, go in and see why they're there, you know, because they're going to be products of their habitat, you know, where they're at. They may not have that big giant sea of Yopon, you know, they're living in the environment that drew them in that they knew since they were small, you know, and they're finding the best cover within that. So you just got to do that same thing in your block, you know, find out in that block where those deer prefer to be. You know, they cover a wide range, you know, but it's not going to be 20 miles. You know, they're just going to live in their range. They're going to be in their best cover in that range, you know, whatever that looks like. So it's kind of the way I see it. It's just kind of, it's hard
that's a
to
good
say
way to
one
put
way
it.
or the other. Hard to say
Probably
one.
better than I would have said it.
Well, man, you got to go to work soon. I got to start packing. So I'll
Yeah,
let you drop. I know you provided us a little bit extra time. So you said about 6 minutes from now was your cutoff. So you good?
I'm good. I'm happy. I know that this was, I love talking about this, man. And I know we've got some important announcements to make. And I'm just happy. I'm happy to be a part of something good, something great. You know, we've worked hard to really do something for the people. And get ourselves we threw ourselves out there to the wolves, man. And you know, we don't have to be liked. We're not asking you to like us. We'd love for you to like us, but we're not asking to be liked. We're not asking to be loved. But for those who follow, you know, we're doing this for you guys. You know, we're just wanting to ease the learning curve. We're happy to be a part of the community and to give what we can back to the community and getting the community involved in talking about the passion that we love, and that's hunting and being outdoors. So, with
Yeah.
that being said, I think that we have some big changes, and I don't know how you want to announce this, brother, but big changes to my business name, big changes to how I represent myself out there, and I think it's for the better, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too, man. No, and yeah, to your point, um, we're going to be changing things up a little bit, and it's probably not too because it's going to be coming within the next week. There's already some hints out there. We've already dropped it out there on the social media. I'm not one for like a big sort of reveal, you know, hell with all that. You know, it's just
Dude,
like
this guy drops posts at like midnight, and I wake up and I'm like, dude, you can't do this.
like you
You need to wait and like
can't
do
just
it in the morning when we all know what's going
yeah,
on.
can't just change the vision on everybody at 1 in the morning. You know, when you wake up, you're like. I'm like, that's just when I get on a roll sometimes. That's just when I'm all hyped up middle of the night and I'm just like, send it, you know. But no, man, we're gonna be bringing in like new members of the team is the only way to put it. Just guys who got a lot of the same passion as we do. We're going to be pulling everything in and kind of under a new name and a new umbrella. And like I said, couldn't be more thankful for you, man. I know, it's a big ask to sometimes, to pull together something you worked on for so long, but um, we're going to be doing that together. And within respect to like Rudy's business, we're going to pull all this together that really represents um, what we want to put out there as a team, as a group, as an effort, as a passion. We're going to encompass everything. We'll put a whole lot of thought into it. So we'll probably drop another little clip hint in here, probably put something here on the end of the video. And if you haven't followed us on social media or YouTube or the Facebook page, specifically go check those out because all those are going to be transforming. And we just, like Rudy said, I don't want to catch you too off guard, but you just be looking around one day and be like, I don't know what happened to that guy's stuff, but now I'm subscribed to this channel. So, that's kind of the thing. It's like something just disappears and it gets replaced. But no, we're gonna embrace our Texas roots, and it's gonna be Team Texas going forward. So I'm excited, man. But you got a couple more minutes. I'm not gonna keep you. I don't want you to be late for work because
Well, I appreciate it.
I don't want that to be my fault. And you've already
And people are waking up in my house. It's about to get loud anyway. So till next time, guys.
Yeah, appreciate everybody listening to the podcast. Go check out the new video version that we're posting. Probably, at least every week, every update, we're going to have a video version. And be looking for the scouting drop video that associated with this conversation because there's probably some nuggets in there, too, that you can pull out because I tried to capture as much as I could for those of you who are interested in that. So do us a huge favor, guys. Go leave us a 5-star review or whatever star review. You tell us we suck. If we suck, that's fine. It's not going to hurt our feelings because we're just not going to stop what we're doing anyway. So, but that's cool. You could at least tell us why, and maybe we'll try to fix it. Send us a message, and we're always about getting better. So, appreciate it. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel because I think with this new launch, we're going to do some giveaways. We got some stuff on order. We're trying to pull a bunch of stuff together to do something for everybody who's been supporting us for so long, and as we make this change as well going forward. So. Appreciate everybody listening to the podcast. Appreciate you watching the video version, and we'll catch you here next time on Texas Public Podcast, and we will see you on the next one. All right, bro, go to work.
All right, man. I'll holler at you later.
Later, dude.